Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to kind of go behind the scenes in Roman history. We're going to explore the mind of Emperor Marcus Aurelius
Yeah.
and his personal writings, the meditations.
It's a really unique thing we've got here.
Yeah.
It's not like a formal philosophy text. It's
Right.
more like raw, unfiltered reflections from one of the most powerful people in
Yeah.
history. It's kind of like we have a direct line to the thoughts of an
Sure.
emperor,
Yes.
just grappling with life's big questions,
Yeah.
all while running a huge empire.
And we're using excerpts
Right.
from the Gregory Hayes translation, which is
Yeah.
great because that's known for being really accessible. So we're going to uncover what made this emperor tick.
Yeah.
How did Stoic philosophy shape his worldview?
Exactly.
And we'll get some glimpses into everyday Roman life.
Exactly. It's like, it's multi-layered,
Yeah.
this text. You get a taste of philosophy and history and personal struggle all in one.
Okay, so let's start with the man himself,
Yeah.
Marcus Aurelius. What made him the emperor philosopher we know today?
Well, he was born into a very prominent Roman family
Right.
in 121 AD.
Okay.
So you can imagine very high expectations right from the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, a life of privilege.
Yeah, a life of privilege. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, he loses his father pretty young.
Oh, wow.
But his grandfather steps in,
Okay.
raises him with this emphasis on self-control and strength of character. And
Yeah.
those things, as we'll see,
Yeah.
are really important to Stoicism, which
Yeah.
he gets into later.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just his family in book one.
Right.
Marcus thanks a whole bunch of people
He does.
for influencing him. He mentions his mother,
Yeah.
his great-grandfather,
Mhm.
even his brother Severus.
Each one teaching him
Sure.
something different about
Yeah.
virtue,
Okay.
which was really important in Roman society.
So it seems like they really focused on personal development.
Yeah, big time.
Even back then.
Yeah.
Mentorship was really important.
It's not just about who
Exactly.
you're related to. It's
Mhm.
about who you learn from
Yeah.
and the qualities they embody.
Well, his education must have been important too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he had like the best tutors you
Yeah.
could possibly have, even for Roman elite
Yeah.
standards. So he studies rhetoric with Herodes Atticus.
Okay.
He hones his writing with Marcus Cornelius Fronto.
Mhm.
We actually have letters between them that survived.
Cool.
So you can see their teacher-student relationship.
Oh, that's awesome.
But what really grabs him is philosophy.
And that's where Junius Rusticus comes in,
Right.
the mentor who introduced him to Epictetus.
Exactly. Epictetus's writings really emphasize self-control
Okay.
and accepting what you can't change and focusing on your own actions and thoughts. This had a huge impact on Marcus.
Yeah.
You can see a direct line from these teachings to what he writes about in the Meditations.
So you have this young Marcus
Yeah.
really into Stoicism,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also destined to be emperor.
Right.
How does he manage that transition, and how does philosophy prepare him for this?
Roman emperors didn't just inherit the throne. Usually they were adopted by whoever the current emperor was.
Interesting.
And so Marcus is adopted by Antoninus Pius,
Okay.
who was known for his wisdom and just rule.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't just a political move.
Right.
Marcus really looked up to this guy.
Okay.
He thought that Antoninus was a fantastic role model as
Yeah.
a human being,
Yeah.
not just an emperor.
And he marries Antoninus's daughter.
Right.
She does,
Oh, okay.
Faustina,
Yeah.
to really solidify this relationship.
Yeah.
And he talks about them both a lot in the Meditations.
He does. He praises Faustina's character.
Okay.
And Antoninus's dedication and his work ethic.
Yeah.
And he even mentions how simply Antoninus dressed,
Interesting.
pointing out the contrast between real leadership and just showing off power.
It was a good example for him.
It
Yeah.
was a fantastic example of
Yeah.
how to be a leader with humility.
He had an amazing foundation.
He did.
But ruling the Roman Empire must have been pretty hard.
Well, it was really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, he's dealing with wars with the Parthians,
Mm-hmm.
this devastating plague
Oh, wow.
sweeping through the empire,
Yeah.
constant pressure from Germanic tribes on the northern borders.
Right.
He even faces a rebellion from one of his own generals,
Really?
Avidius Cassius.
Wow.
Oh,
So
intense.
it's really intense. It's a real testament to his character
Yeah.
that he doesn't just fall apart under this pressure.
And they think that he wrote the Meditations during this time
Right.
in the 170s AD.
Yeah, that's right.
So these weren't just theoretical ideas. It was
Right.
actually...
This was his life. Yeah, like a way to get through it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's during these times
Right.
of intense stress and personal loss.
Yeah.
He actually loses several of his children during this period.
Wow.
That his philosophical reflections become so poignant. It's like he's using Stoicism as a way to understand the chaos and find some strength.
Which is interesting because we often think of Roman emperors as being all-powerful.
Right.
But Roman administration was probably really complicated.
It was incredibly complex.
Yeah. What was it like to rule such a huge and diverse empire?
I mean, imagine trying to run an empire that covers multiple continents and all your communication is dependent on messengers and ships. News from faraway provinces could take weeks or months to reach Rome.
So he couldn't micromanage everything?
Not at all. He had to rely on his provincial governors, hoping that they would actually implement his policies fairly and efficiently.
On top of that, he had to deal with the politics back in Rome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep the Senate happy.
Right.
They still had a lot of influence.
So these ideas about leadership in the Meditations are really interesting.
Yeah.
Because he was really putting them into practice.
Exactly. He wasn't just thinking about abstract ideas. He was applying them to real-world problems.
And that's what makes it so fascinating.
It really is. It's a window into the mind of an outer who has all this responsibility trying to do the right thing in a world that's always testing him.
So how did his philosophy help him with all this?
Well, to understand that, we need to dig into Stoicism itself.
Okay.
And that's where we'll continue our deep dive.
Okay, so let's unpack Stoicism a little.
Sure.
What were the core ideas that Marcus Aurelius really liked?
Well, at the heart of it, Stoicism is all about understanding the logos.
Okay.
It's this rational principle that governs the universe. Think of it like the underlying order of nature or like a cosmic blueprint.
Right.
Stoics believed that everything happens for a reason, according to this design, and real freedom comes from aligning yourself with it.
So it's about accepting what you can't control and finding peace with that.
Exactly, but it's not passive.
Okay.
Stoicism's about taking action, but doing it in a way that's based on reason and virtue.
Okay, so that's where these Stoic disciplines come in. What are they, and how did Marcus use them?
Well, Marcus outlines 3 key disciplines in Meditations 7.54. Perception, action, and will.
Okay.
Let's start with perception.
All right.
This one's all about seeing things clearly, objectively, without letting your emotions or your judgments get in the way.
So separating fact from feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Observation from interpretation.
Exactly.
Got it.
And Marcus uses this great metaphor to illustrate this. He says, imagine a house is on fire. He says, it's not the fire itself that causes you suffering.
Right.
It's how you interpret it.
Oh.
So the Stoics thought that if you train your perception, you could avoid a lot of unnecessary emotional turmoil.
That makes sense.
Right. And you could respond to problems more calmly and rationally.
That's a really useful idea.
It is.
Especially for an emperor dealing with constant crises.
Absolutely.
What about the discipline of action?
So the discipline of action is about living in accordance with nature, doing your duty to society and the common good.
Oh.
This one's a little tricky.
How so?
Well, because the Stoics, including Marcus, they believed in a social hierarchy. It's not necessarily the kind of equality we're looking for today. But within their framework, they stressed acting justly, treating everyone fairly and respectfully, no matter their social standing.
So doing what's best for everyone.
Yes, within that structure.
Okay.
Playing your role to the best of your ability, contributing to the well-being of the whole.
And Marcus was emperor.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of power.
He had a ton of power.
Yeah.
But he saw it as a responsibility, not just a way to get what he wanted.
Yeah. That's different from a lot of rulers throughout history.
It really is.
What about that last one, the discipline of will?
So the discipline of will is all about accepting what you can't control, like death and illness, other people's choices, and focusing on what you can control, your own thoughts, your actions, your reactions. It's about surrendering to the logos, trusting that even if things seem bad, there's a bigger picture you don't see.
So instead of getting mad at fate, you choose how to respond.
Exactly.
Okay.
And all through the meditations. We see Marcus doing this. He's reminding himself to focus on what matters, to let go of things he can't change, to be just and virtuous.
Do you have any favorite quotes that really show this?
Oh, there's so many.
Yeah.
But here's one about accepting death.
Okay.
He writes, "To pass through this brief life as nature demands, to give it up without complaint, like an olive that ripens and falls."
That's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and it shows how Stoicism changes how we think about death.
It's just part of life.
Exactly.
Not something to be afraid of.
Right.
Yeah.
This other one I like is about controlling what you can control.
Okay.
He says, "If it's in your control, why do you do it? If it's in someone else's, then who are you blaming? Blame no one."
Wow.
It reminds you that we spend so much time worrying about things we have no power over.
Yeah, for sure.
So you got to own your actions. Don't blame other people.
Right.
Don't blame circumstances.
It's very empowering.
It is.
Yeah.
And he's got this other great line about finding inner peace. He writes, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul, especially if you have other things to rely on. An instant's recollection, and there it is. Complete tranquility."
Yeah.
And that's really what Stoicism is about, finding peace within, not in external things.
It's a good message for today.
It really is, you know, with everything going on.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we have this power to be at peace no matter what.
Exactly.
So we have this impersonal logos.
Right.
But Marcus also seems to have a personal connection to the gods.
He does.
How does that work with this deterministic view of the universe?
It is a paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
In some parts, he talks about the gods intervening, giving him guidance through dreams and signs.
Interesting.
He thanks them for things like receiving a remedy in a dream.
Really?
He insists that they exist because he says he's experienced their power.
So how do we make sense of that?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Maybe even Marcus didn't know.
Right.
Maybe he saw the logos as part of the divine will.
It's definitely something to think about.
It is.
So we've got Marcus Aurelius, this philosopher emperor, dealing with all these challenges, trying to figure out life and using Stoicism to get through it.
Yeah.
But the meditations are more than that.
Yeah.
They give us this insight into Roman life.
They do.
Which is really cool.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's not just a philosophical text. It's a historical document.
Yeah.
It shows us Roman society and culture, even Marcus's personality. It's like this time capsule from centuries ago.
What are some of those glimpses that we get from the meditations?
Well, one thing is that it's not structured like anything else. Yeah. It's not a treatise or a carefully constructed argument or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just a collection of personal reflections, little aphorisms, quotes, even like internal dialogues with himself.
Wow, so it's kind of like...
Yeah, it's really fragmented and almost stream of consciousness sometimes. And I think that's what makes it so engaging. Yeah. Even for us reading it today. It feels raw and honest. Yeah. Like he's not trying to shape his image or anything like that.
It's like we're reading his diary.
Yeah, it's very intimate. Yeah. And the language itself is really poetic.
Okay.
He uses a lot of imagery, especially from nature.
Interesting.
He talks about vines and olive trees and flowing rivers, and these images really bring his ideas to life. Right. But they also give you a feel for his world, you know? Like you can imagine him walking through his garden, thinking about all this stuff.
And there's a sense of melancholy too, right?
There is. It's almost like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. And I think you have to remember what was going on in his life. It was a tough time to be Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah, for
sure. But he never gives up. He's always looking for meaning and purpose, using philosophy to cope.
And that's probably why people still connect with it so much today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's about these universal human struggles. Even emperors, the most powerful people in the world, they still deal with the same questions about life and death and purpose.
You know, in the introduction, Gregory Hayes mentions that Joseph Brodsky,
the poet.
Yeah, the poet. Yeah. Called Marcus Aurelius the least sentimental writer in the world.
Yeah, what a description.
What do you think he meant by that?
I think he meant that Marcus is just brutally honest. Yeah. He doesn't try to make things sound better than they are. Right. He just faces the hard stuff head on.
Okay.
And that's what makes it so helpful, I think, because it's a realistic approach to dealing with problems.
It's not about feeling good.
No.
It's about understanding reality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he even admits sometimes that he struggles to live up to his own ideals.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
We talked about Marcus Aurelius' life, his philosophy.
Yeah.
We even got a little taste of Roman life.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think the thing to remember is that Marcus, he never meant for anyone to read this.
Oh, wow.
He was just writing for himself, trying to make sense of the world. And that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's just this raw, honest look at someone who's dealing with so much, trying to be a good person in really difficult circumstances.
It's been amazing exploring the world of Marcus Aurelius.
It really has.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.